Hey, what's up, everybody? It's your boy J Rocks. Today I'm gonna be doing a review slash overview of Uncanny X-Men Volume 1 Omnibus. This is the front cover. As most of you know, this cover is the cover to Giant Size X-Men. That's what it says right here too. This reprints a lot of the old material. Now, here you have, Uncanny X-Men. See, it's a pretty chunky book. It's volume 1. Now, what I like about these books is back here, it shows the cover to every issue that's included in this book. See, it has the cover to all of them. So look at that, how many. It has a good amount of material in here. It goes for $100 cover price. It'll tell you right here. Collecting Giant Size X-Men 1 and then X-Men 94 through 131. So that's 30, 36, 37, 38 issues plus an annual number 3. Almost 40 issues, as you see all the covers here. That's a lot of them. Some different books vary. Some will just have like this much, like different amounts. So it's about 900 pages, I believe, somewhere around that ballpark. This is sewn binding. You see the binding is glued and sewn. This is the book without the dust jacket. Just a basic flat black matte finish with X-Men on white letters. Pretty basic. The spine looks exactly like it does with the dust jacket. And nothing on the back. This is sewn binding. You see the binding here? You want this hole right here. So the pages can lay flat. See, the flatter the pages lay. When there's 2-page spreads that you have art from here going to both pages, the flatter it lays, you don't get this gutter loss here. You get to see the whole picture. Some books don't have, if they don't have this, then the pages are gonna be like this, bunched up, and you're gonna, the art's gonna go in, the word bubbles will also go in, so you have more trouble reading it. This one it's glued and it has a sewn binding so that it could give you this awesome feel, kind of like as close as I can to the original single issues, if you will. So it won't have much gutter loss. As we know, the single issues, they have staples in the middle. These are sewn in the middle. They really hold up pretty well. Here's the information on the first page. Volume 1, what issues it covers. Writer Chris Claremont and artist Dave Cockrum and John Byrne. They alternate. Dave Cockrum will do like 10 issues, then John Byrne will do 10, and back and forth. It really gets good when John Byrne is on it. For one, the art is better, and also the stories get better because he throws some ideas out there for the writer Chris Claremont. Maybe we should do this with the characters and this and that, and they work well together. They feed off well off each other with the ideas and so forth. Here you have the info, what issues each artist draws, and the same writer writes the whole thing, with the exception of the first issue, Giant Size X-Men, that was Len Wein. Inkers, letters, so forth, editors, colorists, got all the info you need. Now here you got the table of content. Issue 1, 1975, starts on page 10. Issue 94 starts on page 47, so forth. So you get also this you get interviews by the writers and artists themselves of what they were planning to do with the characters and why they originally failed when Stan Lee was working on it, why they weren't that great, and what they plan to change and to make them different and interesting, right? So you get a lot of bonus content. This issue is called Giant Size because it's 60 pages, 68 pages. It says right here, most comics are about 25, give or take a few pages. So this one was a giant size issue because it was a special issue. They were bringing back the X-Men who had failed at first. These were the original X-Men: Cyclops, Angel, Beast, Iceman, and Jean Grey. Most teams back then had a few guys and a token female, right? Because it was geared towards little kids, towards boys. And so, they didn't really bother having a lot of girl superheroes. And the ones that were there were very much in the background, like they didn't do much. Now, when they failed, they bought, when Chris Claremont came in, they started this new team, which was the popular one that we all know now. They brought in, Cyclops was still there, but all the other characters were replaced by Storm, Colossus, so forth, by all these new characters. And what they did, the idea they had was, watch, one's Indian, one's German, Nightcrawler's German, Colossus is Russian, Wolverine's Canadian, Storm is African American. So you had this team that most teams are work in America, right? The Fantastic Four, they kind of work in space a little. Avengers, Justice League, and so forth. This team was like international, so all other teams were kind of like your local police, and this team was like the FBI that goes all over the world. You know what I mean? So they traveled from country to country. Sometimes they're in Australia, sometimes they're in Canada, sometimes they're in Japan, Mexico. So that made them different. They stood out, and they're all from different backgrounds. So they stood out amongst. Oh, and you got this guy here too. He's Irish, and this guy's Japanese. So they stood out compared to the other your typical superhero teams at the time. This was very, very much ahead of its time, in my opinion. Now, this started in 1978 and it covers issues all the way up to 1979. So it covers 4 years of material. And so this is all in the 70s. Basically, the stories back then is the Silver Age. They can be a little cheesy sometimes, kind of kiddie. And this is kind of the same with this book, but you really see it evolve into something different. It starts off just like all superhero comics, right? Like your monster of the week. We're fighting this villain this month, or sometimes a monster. Like in this case here, it's a monster. They beat them. Then the next episode, right? They're all one shots, as we call them. But X-Men did something different. It took like after every episode, it will stay to be continued, like a soap opera. So leave you in a cliffhanger so that you will come next month by the next issue. Like, what's gonna happen now? Like it didn't finish the story. It ended halfway through it. So it did a continuing story, an ongoing. We call those ongoing stories, right? So that's something that they didn't do very often. Your Batmans and your Supermans, they didn't do that stuff. So it kept the reader interested. Like, now I gotta buy next month's issue because I gotta see I gotta finish the story. Right? Kind of like the Lord of the Rings trilogy where they end like in a story halfway and you're like, oh, now I gotta see part 2. I can't wait for it to come out because I gotta know what happens next. So these did the same thing. And then they did something else. The stories were not always the greatest, but this is strong on character development. You see that since these are all new characters you're reading when you buy this book, or they were new at this time on these issues, you really see them getting their own personalities, their own personal lives. Like on most superhero comics, you have your heroes and it doesn't touch on their life a lot, just their job. And their job is, to save the world, stop crime, and so forth. Here, you got more personal. Like, you got to see each character's life. Like, who is Cyclops dating? What happened to his parents? Who are his parents? He has daddy issues and stuff like that, right? Storm, how does she she's black in the 70s, how does she deal with that? And also she's a woman in the 70s, so she's, that's a whole nother can of worms, and it touches on other stuff that's very interesting. The character development on this is, especially at this time, it was second to none as far as in comics. Now here you see Cyclops has a long lost brother he found all of a sudden, right? So it's very like soap opera, very drama, like, and you didn't do that a lot in comics. Here you have another character that eventually became an X-Men, Polaris. Turned out she was Magneto's illegitimate daughter. He had her at a wedlock and so forth, right? And he never like took responsibility. And she starts dating Cyclops' long lost brother. And so you see where I'm going with this. This is very drama, very soap opera, very engaging. It's a lot of fun. And also this writer, Chris Claremont, what he did is he really started fleshing out first Storm. He wanted the girl character to be more powerful, because in comics they didn't really have much to do with the stories themselves. They were just there. So he had her become very important to the stories, like kind of one of the main characters, eventually becoming the leader, fighting Cyclops for position to lead the team. And she beat him in a fight where neither one uses their special powers. She wins. And then also Jean Grey comes back to the team. So now this team has 2 girls. Most teams had only one. This team has 2 now. They have 2. And then The second one being Jean Grey. Once she's on the team, she's back and they start developing her, and now she starts getting all these new superpowers, right? She gets the power of the Phoenix and becomes the most powerful character on the team, the most powerful player. Being a woman is the most popular one, the most powerful one. So you had the two girls leading the charge, kind of. After you kind of develop them, then they started getting into the developing the guy characters, with the exception of Cyclops. He was pretty well fleshed out already. Then you had Polaris join the team, like I said. So you had a lot of girls on the team now. That was something new and different. And the writer said that's what he wanted to be a little risque. At that time, it was like risky, like we're gonna make the girls more popular than the guys. This is geared towards little boys, so how are they gonna take it? And they liked it. The readers liked it. They're like, oh, how cool! Like now they started liking the girl superheroes too, just as much as the guy superheroes. So it was thinking outside of the box for its time. So I think this book is like, for historical factors, it did a lot of new things at the time. Very pushing the envelope, and let's see what happens. And it became the most popular selling book. It outsold Spider-Man, outsold Batman, outsold Superman, and those were the top books at the time. It became the top seller because of the whole engaging. The characters were so engaging, like that you formed attachments to them. Like you felt like you were really getting to know them, and you were really going through this journey with them. All right, there's the cover to issue 98 of 1975. This is 1975. Oh no, it's April of 1975. That's the cover. The Sentinels are back. Now here on this issue 98 is the first time they show Wolverine without his mask. That's how he would look. They didn't know how he was gonna look, so Dave Cockrum came up with that weird hairstyle. He's like, well, his mask is pointy like that, so like I would guess his hair would be that way, right? That was kind of weird. And look at here in the next page. That's Jack Kirby and Stan Lee. That's the original writer and the original artist from the first issues, which were not very good. They're kind of lame. The book wasn't selling, so they got this new writer and this new artist on it, right? And look what they say. Hey, Stan Lee, they were never doing this when we were writing the book. Cyclops and Jean Grey are making out. It's a kid's book, so they don't do a lot of this stuff. Tell you, this new writer was just taking it in a whole new direction. Here you have the first main villain of the story, Stephen Lang. He's a racist that he really hates mutants, because he thinks he's worried they're superior to people and so forth. They're the next level of evolution. They could fly, they could read minds and so forth. That threatens him, I guess, so he wants to get rid of them. He's basically a metaphor for Hitler. And here, once he introduces this character, the X-Men start becoming kind of a metaphor for Jews and the Holocaust and all that stuff. Here he goes, he's slapping Jean Grey around. He's also a woman beater. Okay, now here they're in space. The spaceship's about to crash, right? Jean Grey, she has the power to hold the ship up and steer it, but it's gonna take a lot out of her. So she's gonna do that, but you see everybody's sad here because they kind of know what's gonna happen, and Cyclops really doesn't want her to do it. If she controls it, takes so much out of her, she could die. And Cyclops here like, no, don't do it, and they're holding them back. They're like, relax, like it's her call. And he's so pissed off about it, and because he knows what's gonna happen. We know what's going down. She does it. She's controlling the ship. If she doesn't, then they will all crash and die. So this way, there's a chance. Look very like 70s Austin Powers with all the colors and groovy, man, and all that stuff going on here. But you're right in a big moment. Is she gonna land the ship? What's gonna happen? Is she gonna die? And it ends, to be continued. So you see, this is the way these issues ended back then with X-Men, and not all books were doing that. And you're like, oh, I can't wait for the next issue. And these were coming out every 2 months. Most books came out every month. And the top selling book came out every 2 months. Now here you continue the story. And the writers here, they tell you in all these pages, see, they tell you, oh, we were leaving those cliffhangers and so forth. They're explaining a lot of bonus material there to explain to you the stuff that was going on at the time, the process. They said it was coming out every 2 months. They're like, we were taking a while because we wanted a good story and good art. We didn't want to just rush the books out just so they could come out on time. We'd rather come out late, but to give you a good product instead of an inferior product. Look at this. This is a nice spread page by Dave Cockrum. Now that day, when she was gonna die, Phoenix from the ashes, a Phoenix was born. The power of the Phoenix saved her. So now she got this new power in space, and now a new costume and everything, right? She basically became a new character that Chris Claremont was creating. And also in these books, and a lot of books, when a character dies, you just keep telling the stories. You never bring it back up. Here, this writer, when a character would die, the next issue, you see how it affects the characters, the other characters in the story. They'll go through mourning. Some will be sad. They just can't do their job. Some have trouble moving on. So you see it did stuff. You didn't just say, okay, it happened, and then we move on and never reference it again. Here you kept talking about those things and tying up those loose ends and explaining everything like in real life. They have to go through the mourning process, cope with it. See, every person deals with it differently. All right, I don't want this to run too long, so I'm gonna speed it up and finish it right here. This is Corsair. They're called the Space Jammers. This chose. They're space pirates. He's basically Han Solo in Space Pirates, and there's Chewbacca, right? But this came out before Star Wars. This was in 1975. So this came out before Star Wars. And it turns out Corsair is Cyclops' father. So you have that whole Luke, I am your father moment. This is his dad. And so it became popular, and I don't know if Star Wars copied it from this book or other stories. I think there's other stories had done similar things before. But the point being, this did it before Star Wars did. So another one of those moments where, I thought my dad abandoned me a long time ago, and he just didn't want me. And he's kind of like, it's more complicated than that, and they don't explain it in this book. I guess you will have to buy the second one to find out. Okay, here you get the bonus features at the end, kind of like a Blu-ray with the bonus content. Here, like different costumes they were designing and like prototypes before they decided which one to go with. This is the one they went with at the end for Phoenix. Here's the Storm one that they decided to give Storm. It's pretty cool. They explain to you the process. Here's some inks, black and white before the coloring and so forth. So they explain to you a lot about the process and the behind the scenes stuff, how they came up with concepts or story arcs, how they came up with the ideas, and was it the writer's idea, was it the artist's idea? Because a lot of these ideas that you think, the artists, they just draw. A lot of times these artists are the ones that come up with the plot. They're like, you know what, I got an idea, let's make it about this. And then it's up to the writer to make it come to fruition, because obviously the artist isn't as good at writing as the writer would be. So sometimes, just coming up with a good idea, it helps the writers out a lot too. Now they have something to work with and to go off of. So here you get some black and white pages, and they explain to you sometimes why they did certain panels certain ways, which is pretty cool. You get a lot of bonus content here. These are well worth the $100. A lot of times you can find these on in-stock trades for like 40% off. So you find them about $60. All right, guys. I hope you like what you saw. If you learned something here, hopefully this convinced you if this is a book you want, or if there's a book you want to pass on. But at least you now get an idea of what it is in case you were thinking of ordering it. Also, this is a great way to get this stuff that's reprinted, because a lot of these issues are old. If you want to buy the issues to read them, the original ones, some of these goes for hundreds of dollars, some even thousands. So here you get them all for $100. A great deal. All right, you like what you saw? Hit that like button. Also, if you're not subscribed, you might want to think about hitting that subscribe button. I'll be making more of these videos. And if you really want to get hardcore with it, hit that bell and it'll notify you on your phone, on your app, whatever, every time a new video's up. Alright guys, if you read this before, you know about these stories, or you bought these type of books, let me know in the comments, what do you think about them? Are they worth the price tag? And did you like these stories, or did you feel they were a little dated? I've always liked hearing other people's opinions to see how we all vary. We all have different opinions on stuff. And alright then guys, I'll check you guys out next time.